startup ecosystem, what the idea is that you have to learn how to pitch your idea clearly and concisely. And once you learn how to do that, then you can bring in all the stakeholders and you can get into programs that'll help you and train you on how to build it. But that first step is you have to design a business model that is desirable.
When I initially moved back to Pensacola, I had a meeting with Lloyd. Lloyd invited me for breakfast and I was telling him, man, I still have an idea for the entertainment industry. This is what I wanted to do. He was like, all right, I got Startup on the Blocks. So I need you to start coming to Startup on the Blocks and get a little more information on how to work through the tech ecosystem and take your idea and we'll get you where you need to go. My company is called The Know, is an app that is streamlining business for the entertainment industry. Yeah, so if you're a musician, what you would do is pretty much jump on the platform, you'll create a profile, but the way we created the profile is pretty much a cleaner way. So now if they want more information about you, you'll connect your social media platforms, your streaming platforms, and that way they can go directly to it. What we also have included is your calendar. So pretty much you can set your days, you can set your price for your days and automate your booking. So initially talking to Lloyd, my idea was all here, it was there, it was over here, it was over there. It was like, all right, Quinn, I get it. You got a lot that you want to do, but we need you to bring it in just a little bit and then work on your pitch, your story, and how you're going to bring it full circle to get people to understand what you're trying to create.
Most of the programs here wasn't inclusive, and so we said we'll focus on helping founders of color. We also start at the beginning of the thing, at the idea stage, whereas a lot of the programs you see here locally, they start after you're up, and that's not very efficient unless if you don't have a lot of money, you can't recover from your mistakes. And the lean startup system, it actually helps you make mistakes faster before you spend a lot of money. You don't actually start building anything until you got customer buy-in.
There was a need for small businesses to bring brand awareness to their business. I see there's a lot of makers and bakers that they're making all of these goodies and these products, but they can't market it, they can't sell it at the same time, and there needs to be kind of like that middleman, that middle person to help bring economic growth to some of the small businesses in Pensacola. So Taste of Pensacola, I came up with that idea during the pandemic when I saw things at that time that Amazon couldn't fulfill. They didn't even have those products, but the local people in the community, they did. And so there was a ton of people coming out saying, hey, I make masks. I'm like, wow, this is amazing, all the local people here that are just as talented that can actually make those products. And so I wanted to kind of showcase who they were. So with Taste of Pensacola, our income streams, we have several of them. We have the corporate America, we do corporate gifting, just regular consumers, different Pensacola natives that don't live here that want to purchase our boxes, like a taste of weddings, distribution. So we also do bulk sales. So for a private airline, if they want some local snacks and goodies on their passenger flights, they will come to Taste of Pensacola and we will source their vendors here locally, and we'll give a small business owner an opportunity to have reoccurring monthly sales. I've always had a really big vision for Taste of Pensacola. I knew that it could go beyond just local. I know that maybe other communities could possibly use the same platform that I'm trying to build. And I always have these big visions, but I never know how to even get there. Where do I start? I know it's more than, there's a lot of technical things behind it. I know there's a lot of research, but that connection, I never had it until, thankfully, I met and was introduced to Startups on the Blocks and was able to just learn more about how to grow it in terms of data. Things I just never thought about, framework, words like traction. There's a lot of things that I just did not know about and language that I need to know in order to get funding for my business. There's just a lot that I didn't know.
I would go to the stores and look online. They didn't have a wide variety of natural hair products about 8 years ago. And the ones that they did have, the ingredients, it would say that they were all natural. And when I would research the ingredients, a lot of the ingredients were not natural. I make everything, my shampoo, conditioner, I have an oil that I make, and I have 2 different separate butters. Like I had some people who were completely bald and grew their hair. It's about giving women their confidence back in their hair. I have this salon and then I have a second salon, and I have my products in about 5 beauty supply stores. So I need a manufacturer to keep up with the demand at this point. Startup on the Blocks has helped my business grow, send me to different people. I'm able to do different pitch competitions to apply for grants in the community for small businesses. Lloyd's a really good person to connect with. He has a lot of resources here in the community that can help small businesses grow. If you have a product out there and you're trying to go big time, he's the person that you would want to meet with.
So it's really important to have some type of support because 9 times out of 10, most founders start out on their own. And to have somebody that has an idea of how the ecosystem works and is able to tap into other resources and bring back to the community, and that pretty much has encountered some of the roadblocks or going through the same roadblocks that we're currently going through and understands where you're at, your culture and how you respond to things, is a big help because you don't really have too many people that have access to what we have access to here in the community. And a lot of people believe that you have to leave and go to bigger cities to do the things that we're doing here. But I mean, it's one thing to have exposure, but you have to actually know it's here in the community in order to take advantage of the resources. So I get approached and I talk to friends all the time that wants to either start an idea or hear that I'm actually doing the app and wants to know more information about how are you doing it or what's the process, what's the path. I'm like, man, we have somebody here, Startup on the Blocks, Reshard. And Lloyd is here, he's a great resource to the community and to founders that's trying to learn the ecosystem. So join Startup on the Blocks.
How are you, Miss Robin? How are you?
Now I'm Miss Robin.
Yes, you're Miss Robin. Yep, yes, join Startup on the Block. Yeah, that's a good, Quinn, that's a good lead in. Yeah.
Okay, I'm Miss Robin. Hello, Mr. Lloyd.
Yes, welcome to Startup Founders Best Practices. I think looks like a lot of people chiming in to hear what you got to say.
Oh, well, let them know every joke is funny. That's
Okay.
hypnotize them with the.
Well, you're real popular and well known, and so glad to have you on to kind of share some stuff tonight. And yep, looking forward to a nice conversation.
Well, thank you. Don't be a good lawyer now. Don't ask me no question you don't already know the answer to now. You
All
know,
right.
just saying. I'm just saying.
Okay.
No trickery now. No trickery. You know, I shoot it straight, so no trickery now.
Yeah. Well, I play fair. Yeah.
Okay. All righty. Then you can eat dinner tonight. Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I know about if I got to come home tonight, so I know I got to be good. Yeah. So it's definitely a pleasure to have you on tonight, and we're you're going to be sharing some stuff about coupled and in business. So we look forward to hearing about that. But your real hallmark is storytelling, right?
Well, I do. I like storytelling. I grew up hearing my parents, mostly my father, but my parents telling stories. Both of them were lovers of books and reading and people. And so I just, growing up, I didn't think of it in terms of this is what it would turn out to be, but it was, you're sitting around in a little country town and you're listening to the elders tell stories or these people that, we met through our parents, them telling their own stories and literally sitting at the feet of these people that sometimes we often saw in history books. And here they were in our living rooms or in the community at a business function or something, because we were there with our parents and doing that, whether we were volunteering or voluntold to be there. And so it was just looking back on it this many years and decades later, it was really an amazing opportunity to hear different people's narratives and their stories, whether it was about business or the community or a joke. I really got an opportunity to see people in different areas. And again, even as a child, not knowing their professions, maybe seeing their professions later and often, on TV or hearing about their professions later. It was just that camaraderie that they had with each other to tell these stories, to sometimes to make a point, sometimes to make a joke, sometimes to push back on something. And so yeah, I felt really, looking back on it, I felt really privileged. It's a privilege now that literally I was in the room. Me and my siblings and I were in the room.
Yeah.
And so yeah. I like storytelling. Again, didn't know that's what it was going to turn out to be, but I love it. I love it. Yeah.
It's fantastic. It sure helps out a lot. I'm going to give a little shout out to some of our partners and sponsors and folks we've been working with in the past and still working. Some of them we're still working with. But I think in order to get these partners and sponsors and stuff, you have to be able to tell stories, right?
You do, because you have to have some connecting point, and often that connecting point could be around a personal story or a personal point or a professional point, but it's a way to connect with somebody. And so we're all humans. We all belong to this thing we call the human race. We have different perspectives, and sometimes those different perspectives don't meet. They don't rub up against each other. And so it's a really good opportunity when you're forming partnerships to just listen, to just sit down and listen.
Yeah.
So that's a good opportunity. Can you talk about the partners? I'm gonna step away because we got a 2-year-old. And
Yeah, Robin is taking care of her great nephew TJ. He's the bomb, but he requires a little bit of attention because he's about 2.5 years old. So we definitely understand that with our founders and so on. But yeah, so most of these partnerships that and folks you see here, yeah, they have a story to tell, and we have a story to tell. And so when you want to get these partner organizations and sponsors, you really have to tell a story. And we really appreciate these folks and companies. And the number one thing we got in common, all these logos you see up here, all these organizations, they work with founders and they help founders. And so that's the kind of beautiful thing about it. And so, for example, like Coda, we partner with them and they give founders 6 months free of their service and with unlimited AI, make startups. That's the AI-driven platform, Pitch Bob's AI-driven platform. And so do you remember who our first sponsor was at the Kukua Institute, my love?
First sponsor. Oh my.
Oh, I can, yeah. So like I think I can answer this one because you remember we got the Institute started when we had to move this historic house.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that. It was like it was so many different people. So yeah, so we got the house because a friend in the community, and I really give him credit, Christian Wagley, who's an environmentalist, and it's not our bailiwick at all.
Yeah.
It's not our area. We were partners through this community work. So, and because he had started Bike Pensacola, one of the first places that it was Belmont de Villiers, and so he would come to the neighborhood association meetings, and so you probably that sort of partnership, and then
let me tell what I remember.
Okay, all right.
The first major check we got.
Oh, the check. Partnerships aren't all about money; they're resources. But go ahead.
Yeah, what it was? It wasn't it over $50,000? It was.
Well, I mean, we certainly put in the sweat equity, and that's what I think that's what I'm getting at. I know that you're going by money, but I'm saying even the partnership with the house, like the real estate company and the law firm that owned it, Alstock, Witkin, and I think Overholtz. So the partnerships came in such different areas, but you're right. Our first check came. Yes, I know where you're going.
but the point is, his question was how did we get it? But it was because of the relationship we had with the person, and so you had a great relationship with the person. I had a great relationship with the person, and that's what you have to. Point is, you network to build relationships, and so you can do stuff together in the future.
Yeah, and I remember, I think you're talking about Quint, and so I
Yeah.
remember one of the questions that we were working on another project, and so someone asked me to go to a meeting with him, and I remember him asking this very pointed questions like, "I know the what, tell me the why." So I know we were doing scholarships for students, and so that was the what. I mean, the literal what. And so, but he was like, "Tell me why." And I think that's when. So when it goes back to storytelling, what is that why? What is that you're trying to get to? So like the who and the what and the where, but it really is the why. And I think that's what pulls into people's heartstrings, or that emotional part that you get. I am nosy as crap, and there's I don't know if I can say crap on Startup on the Blocks, but or inquisitive or curious. There's a lot of different ways that you can say that. But what draws you to either your product or your service? Why did you do that? And that is a good connecting point to do
Yes.
that, because often partnerships are again about resources, and those resources may not come in the form of a check. You may get someone who may say, we will give you a year's free rent or lease space. I mean, and it's something that that you can put on your books, but you don't have a check in hand, but you can put that on your books. And so it's so many different ways. In the nonprofit world, they talk about time, talent, and treasure. There's so many different ways that you can give things. When we started the Institute, there was, such a blessing when people said, "Oh, I have this," or "I have this, I have, an hour. How can I help you? I have this." And that's continued even to this day when somebody says, "Well, I can do something. I can only do a little bit, or I can do a much," and it all adds up to it. So, and that's that sort of group mentality, and that, we can all, the village concept, we all succeed if we work together, however we can figure out how to work together.
Yeah. And so, like, for example, Innisfree Hotels, they have a nonprofit called The Hive.
Mhm.
And so back in 2020, when we started, um, all we didn't have any all these programs that we have now. But anyway, they sponsored first 4 pitch competitions. So they
Wow.
put up the money for the prizes. And then, to believe it or not, as I reached out for tools to help founders, and I would talk to these different companies and that had this and that. When I told the story of what we were doing with the startup founder best practices with Startup on the Blocks, uh, 8 out of 10 of them let us use their software for free.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And that's literally something you couldn't pay for. I mean, we couldn't afford to
no, because
pay for it. Yeah. And so, and it's not just the institute benefiting, it's the founders. And so whatever space or time or stage that they're in, they get that chance, that opportunity to benefit as well. And so, yeah, it's a blessing.
oh yeah, and so through this program, what we're doing tonight, we've been doing it since August of 2020, and so the neat thing happened. So I would post to some of our partners, and yeah, I would tag them on my post and stuff like that. And then so it wasn't Florida Power and Light at the time; it was Gulf Power. They had some money left over at the end of the year, and so they called me up and gave it to me. I didn't even have to ask for it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
and to me, that's the benefit of the relationships, building these relationships over time, and different tasks, and so I think that's the benefit, that it is this sort of beautiful give and take. It's so you're withdrawing, you're depositing
yeah,
over time. And speaking of Innisfree, when we did uh, not Freedom is the Priceless Boon. When we did
Well,
Viola,
yeah.
yeah, the song cycle for Viola and brought in opera singer from the New York Metropolitan Opera, two singers from First Coast Opera, and two others, including Lloyd Jr., they were able to provide us space and this amazing opportunity to house them. It's something that we had in our budget, but we couldn't afford, and so here is this opportunity, something very simple like that. Like they have space, we have the people, and so we partnered with them to be able to do that. And so it's not something that they go and advertise that they did this and all that. It's just this gesture of good faith and partnerships along the way. And maybe not, you won't get that all the time, but even that one instance may take you a little bit farther. So partnerships are a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like I'll talk about Synergy Construction Group for a minute. So Ron, I've been knowing him for probably about 13, 14 years, but I hadn't seen him in person since I first met him. But I actually met him through email first, and then I took a visit to St. Louis, and then years later, in 2020 when we started the startup Founder Best Practice, he started chiming in sometimes on Thursday night, and he kept telling me, so Lord, you need to do a conference, and after about 2 or 3 years, I said okay, and then he was our first sponsor for doing the Black Founders Innovation Summit. But if people see you doing stuff, and it sets a good example.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'll let you. Is this a question? I'm not sure.
It says, how do you know when to tell your story versus the story of your business? So how do you know to tell your story versus the story of your business? I think it's an opportunity. I think you should always take the opportunity.
Oh, what's going on there? You're freezing up, my dear. I'm not sure why. Oh, is it me?
Oh, there you go. Still there?
Okay. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
here. Did I
Okay.
freeze up? Or did you freeze up?
I was still going. I don't know. You're the
Oh,
king.
okay.
Oh no.
Oh, I don't,
Yeah, is that Rastafa?
yeah, Dr. Roz.
Okay. So answering their question, how do you know when to tell your story versus the story of your business? And I think it has to be, you have to figure a way to blend them, because each business is like a friend of mine. She's, God rest her soul, she would tell me she was a writer for a major newspaper, and she told me every story you write it's a little bit of autobiography. And so even your business is a bit of autobiography, because it has a bit of biography, because it has your passion and your purpose in it. So whatever that product or service you're doing is because you're passionate about it and you purpose to do it. And so perhaps it just, when is the first thing is to write each one of those stories separately, and I think eventually you'll see them intertwine. It's like on, I'll say this in hush, it's like on Shark Tank, and we were watching that last night. It's like on Shark Tank, and they always go, well, tell me your story after they've told about the product or the service, because people again want that connecting point. So I can have the best widget in the world, but people want to know why I'm so passionate about widgets. What is it that drove me to say, this is the widget that's going to work for your company, or for your problem that you have, or for this task that you need to complete. This is the widget, whatever that widget is, a product or service. And so eventually it will get to you as a person. If you're not able to connect those two, maybe you need to examine those two.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not a psychologist and I don't play one on TV. I'm just saying. That's
well,
a good.
it's kind of amazing that he asked that question, because so when I looked at your background and storytelling, and so in my chat GPT, I always ask, the takeaway, it's like, so I say, what are the takeaways from Robin's, story, and what are some insights I can get from it, and what kind of actions can I take from that? And so this is what came up, and it's the same question that he asked, is that the narrative is your story narrative is your unfair advantage in your startup growth. So because you are tied to the product or service that you're building, and that's and that's the why is all about you and your experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you have your founder's journey story, founder's story, and you had the origin story of your company, but they're totally entwined
Yeah.
together, and so you answered it perfectly. And I just happened to have that chart waiting. So, Dr. Ross, I could read your mind. I know you're going to ask that question. but that literally was the takeaway from your background.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah, but yeah, that's kind of what the deal is. So we definitely appreciate all the sponsors, but I can honestly tell you, every last one of them, they were aware of the work that you and I do, and so it wasn't even a question. Yeah,
And that, I mean, again, that's a blessing. I think in each of our respective places, and especially for your founders, is they have those same capabilities and those same partnerships. Some of them may not be taking advantage of them right away. Some of them you may want to say not right now, but to build that, to literally to make those deposits. And you're not doing it to say, I want to do this for some future thing. You're doing it because it's the right thing to do, but it will bear fruit. I love being in our orchard and planting seeds and figuring things out. And so sometimes you plant a seed and it may not bear fruit for 8 or 10 years. And it seems like an awful long time, but it has to go through that maturation period, because you don't want something to bear fruit. They tell you when you buy a tree, if you're buying it in its first or second year, to actually remove the fruit so that the roots can grow stronger. And oftentimes, we may want to sell something or provide a service that really hasn't matured yet to the point where it is best for the offering. And so because that foundation isn't set, so we want that root system, like in fruit trees, like in our orchard or in our garden, we want those fruit trees to really have good established roots so that they can bear fruit. And that requires patience. And sometimes in that patience, you'll become a patient. Things will get sick and it won't work. You'll need a little tender care. I have to make some compost tea to kind of get something to work. Sometimes, like, okay, you need a little bit extra help over here with this, or you may have to prune something back too. I'm going way too much into the orchard.
There's always an analogy to, just like if you look at a logo, it's about growing, and Kukua means growth, and so it's it's kind of natural. Yeah, and I'll say one last thing before I get off this slide here. So, like, I remember when we got started, and we were collaborating with the Small Business Development Center at UWF, and they literally, for this particular program, they actually designed our logo for us, our Startup on the Blocks logo, and so we collaborated in that way. So it's just that. That's why you have to tell your story and what you're trying to accomplish. And so I'll say this too is the reason why we started Startup on the Blocks. It was several reasons, but it related to the fact that I, as a founder, knew it was needed because I was a founder and I was struggling. And you, Robin, you did all our storytelling to kind of help us along with the startup, and but so when all the money started to get set aside for after George Floyd got killed, um, and so all these programs that had the money, you have to tell your story, uh, and your business story, your business model story, to actually get access to the funding, and that's literally the gatekeeper for funding for grants, funding for pitch competitions, funding for everything. It's literally a gatekeeper. So if you don't learn how to tell the story of your business model and your founder story, you can't get through this gate to get the money. And so
And don't
that's
be afraid to, let me just hop in there too, babe. Don't be afraid to tell your story. You know, I because I love to write, I often hear people who are writing, whether they're writing for a magazine or you know, they're just writing their story. They go, you know, I don't, and I ask them, I say, well, what do you read? And they, well, I don't want to read anybody else's things. I don't want to be influenced. But that's the way that you learn, is by seeing what's out there in the marketplace, seeing what else, but also then sharing your story so that it can be, challenge is not the best word, vetted is not the best word, but it, and challenged in a bit of a way, or vetted in a bit of a way too, so that you can see that it's resonating with people. Because you may say something that's not resonate with people, but if it's all in your head, then it becomes, because listen, I think everything I write is perfect. I like, you know, I don't need an editor. I don't need somebody to do it. But the first time that I let somebody else read it, they catch something and they say, well, did you mean to say this? Or it comes across as saying this. And so I have to get out of my head to present it outside, you know. So I have people that I present it to for, you know, the editing part, just the syntax and all of that sort of stuff, grammar and all of that. But then there are some people who will read it for the historical part too. Well, you know, how can you prove that they said this, or can you prove that this, in fact, these two people were, you know, married, or how do you know this? And so don't be afraid to share those stories, because in the end, it makes it better, it makes it stronger, and it's still yours. So no one else can tell your story. And I don't care, somebody may try to grab it or steal it or, you know, appropriate it, but it's your story. They don't have the roots like you do. So never be afraid to share your story. And again, for me, the Spirit always tells me when to, back to Dr. Who did you say, Dr. Oz's
yes,
question, it kind of tells me when to, you know, when to tell stories, and when to merge the two, the business and the personal. um so you just follow your own lead, whether it's your gut or, you know, your intuition, whatever you want to call it. You should be not afraid to be led by that and sharing something, because in the end, again, like those fruit trees, it may take a minute to bear fruit, but if you never ever plant that seed, if you never ever do that, you won't bear fruit at all.
yeah. So I think I can say something in a similar way, and I'm thinking about all the programs that I participated in and got involved in, you know, the startup stuff, and basically you tell your story that actually leads into the startup story, and so people want to know you and why you're the one solving the problem. But you said something earlier about writing and stuff like that, you know, being a good storyteller, a good writer, you know. But what I learned, you know, through our relationship was that you're a reader, and good readers, I think, often become good writers because their brain is wired on how to say stuff.
Mm. And that's, again, that's reading what's out in the marketplace. I mean, I read for fun. The last, oh my goodness, I don't know, the last 20 years, I don't feel like I've read for fun very much. But I love to read. I like that curiosity, that inquisitiveness, that nosiness. You know, it gets the best of me sometimes. And so I probably have more books stacked up than then I will get to. But if I don't have them there, if I don't have them in the house, if I don't have them in the office, if I don't have them at the institute, then how can I then get to them if they're not there and readily available? But it's reading of these other perspectives, and then that reading, that thing can take you. I may not be able to travel to Bolivia, but through a book, through a few pages, then, or maybe a few hundred pages, I can experience something through someone else's eyes. And so again, I don't have to drink their Kool-Aid, but I got to know that they got a flavor. And so that's just as important, getting other people's perspectives.
Yeah, and I think your brain learns all these patterns, but the way it also relates to startups. So there are plenty companies out there that are doing something similar to what you're building, and it's a pattern. And so that means you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But if you haven't read or observed what they're doing, and how they explain it, that's going to help you learn how to explain what you're doing. So and that's why I tell people. So like I was witnessing a presentation, you can kind of call it a pitch yesterday, and the gentleman had a payment, micropayment system, and so his first kind of customer, he was kind of doing his pitch towards the first type customers for doing these micropayments for newspaper articles or whatever. But I suggested to him that you're like he was more like a PayPal for payments, but he's, like I said, you're actually more like a Stripe for micropayments. And he said, "What is Stripe?" And I'm saying, if you're in the payment industry and you don't know who Stripe is, that's going to be a bad sign. But if he just read what Stripe is doing and how they grew their company to a multi-billion-dollar company, he doesn't have to reinvent the wheel on how to tell his story, because everybody, I would say, I don't know what's the percentage, but I would say the majority of the startups and use Stripes for payment all over the world. And so if we need a micropayments thing that payments for under $1, you wants to become that, so people can relate to that. So I don't know. It's just, that's why I say, like you say, reading, and so I say listening to podcasts, reading articles about other things. Your brain get wires on how to tell these stories,
and seeing it too. So getting into different trainings or conferences and getting out and meeting people. So doing things digitally is great and it's convenient, but actually meeting people and hearing breath to breath their successes and challenges, their failures, their get back up, beginning is just as important.
So I didn't think that one question was going to take us off on this long. That's right, but it did hit the point of what this storytelling is all about. You wanted to chat a little bit about, you and I, you witnessed my startup journey, and my joke was, when I would be out traveling or going to somewhere every day, I say I'm in the doghouse. So my first question is, why you put me in the doghouse so many times?
I love you. I never put you in the doghouse. That was you walking your way there. So, but that's a whole nother. We need a psychologist. We need Dr. Irv Williams on for that answer. I didn't put you in the doghouse. I'm putting that out.
That was my joke. I would tell people that I'm in the doghouse, man. I'm never home. I'm up late, working late. But you were talking about this couple thing. So it was about couples working together, two people working together on a startup.
That was a different kind of lead, and I will tell you that. I will tell you that right now.
Well, let me say some more true stuff.
But, all right, I think we better get into the presentation. So maybe that'll do some questions. Oh my Lord.
One more thing about the storytelling. So like, I remember I was up for this award for Black Engineer of the Year, and so I wrote up my story, and I kind of wrote it up kind of jokingly, and stuff. And then Robert
engineer-esque jargon.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But you actually turned it into a almost a tear-jerking story. So that about my growing up, and believe it or not, that was one of the things that helped me win that award. For Black Engineer of the Year, is based on the the ability to write it into a story format. Yeah.
People want to know that why, and you don't have to start off with that why. You can ease into it, but I think people want to know that why. Yeah. Sometimes you may go straight to it, you may go around it, but you have to eventually back to that question that Quint asked me. Quint asked, I know the what. Tell me the why. Tell me the why I should do when 10 million people are selling the same widget. Why should I buy this from you? Why should I partner with you? Why should I, invest in these scholarships for these? Whatever that why is, tell me. Whatever that what is, tell me that why. Get to that why. Yeah.
So, all right, I'll put this up on the screen. I get a kick out of that story.
Yeah. So I just thought, I know you're coming to the end of the are getting ready to do the competition and especially the end of this year, and a lot of the startups, and what I've seen with people working with you and working in the community to see, you see so many people, either going at it alone or going at it with someone else. And I thought it's just maybe, a little inspiration to see some people in history who have coupled up in business. And so I said, examining historical partnerships for inspirations. And sometimes, and I'm saying coupled in business, kind of starting out with two, but in some cases we'll see. And I just have a few examples, specifically from Pensacola, of couples, and there are so many more. So let me just put that out there. So many more. But then also there's partnerships can extend beyond that too. Obviously 2 or 3, and in one case, you'll see a whole family get behind a business, and a business that's going on still to this day, from the early 1900s, and over 100 years old now. And so so I thought that would just be, hopefully would give people some inspiration, and you see people in a different way too. So and this may be some people on startup on blocks tonight. They may know or have heard of some of these people, or maybe in their families, or maybe in the same industry. So I tried to pick some different industries, the 6 different industries of sectors that will do it. So you're gonna flip it through.
Yeah, tell me when you want to.
Okay, yeah, you can go. So that first picture, this is John Spain and his wife Mary Spain, or Span. You would see it two different ways. Both of them were from Alabama and came to Pensacola sometime around 1897. He went by JT Spain, or Span. And then they had he was a bayman, so he worked on the docks, and he was heavily involved with the longshoremen and the baymen, and starting with the labor movement there on the bay right down in Pensacola. But then, and I don't know what his why was, which is interesting. We were just having a conversation, but the what is that they raised 9 children. They had 10. One died in childbirth. One of the book that we're talking about, we can talk about later, is coming out. But Joe Vinson found that one of their children had died. But he started the United Order of Brotherhood, and so they worked together, in the community. And so he saw people who needed benefits for when they got sick, when they were disabled, and when a family member died. So he started this United Order of Brotherhood as a way to provide this sick benefit, disability benefit, death benefit for families. So here you are, you're working, so he has this other job, right? So he has this other job, but then he founds this, if that's the right way to say it, founded this business, and this is him and Mary, and so I just think it, and so the partnership here is just again, without knowing their full backstory, is her support as he had founded this, and it was around at least until his death in 1918. And so it was Florida. He had policies, and there were United Orders in Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and Arkansas. We have clear evidence of those, and so both of them are buried right here in Pensacola, coming from Alabama. But I thought that was, again, that's a gentle way of easing into a partnership, to be inspired, because sometimes that person may not be your spouse, may not be your own paper partner, but they are certainly supporting you in that business. She is raising that family while he's doing that, but because she did that, it enabled him to deliver this service to people and have others. They had a newspaper. It was called United Brotherhood. They had a newspaper for a number of years, and so he really did. He really looked out for his fellow person through this service, and so for families and individuals through this service. And their clientele was predominantly, if not all, African American, because he saw the gap and find the need and filled it. But that's JT or John, JT and Mary Spann.
Okay.
And I love this story. This is I see I made a little error there. This is DJ and Florence Cunningham, Daniel and Florence Cunningham, and they owned a grocery store. So he was from Alabama, she was from Pensacola, and she was a teacher by day, was a teacher, and he ran their grocery store that they both owned. A grocery store right down, if you're in Pensacola, right down what they call Railroad Street, Tarragona, right down in the heart of Pensacola. And so they had this grocery store. And they also had real estate. You would see in the papers where they would buy and sell real estate together. He was in 1900. He was one of at least two, maybe three, but at least two that we know of, named Pensacolians who went to Boston to be at the first conference for the National Negro Business League, which was started by the famed Booker T. Washington. And so they traveled to, in August of 1900, they traveled to Boston, Massachusetts, and at this conference, he was one of the speakers at this conference, and he said, "Gentlemen, make sure that you include your wives in the business." He said that was the way that he succeeded, not only in the grocery business, but also in the real estate business. So he made a point. Imagine saying that in 1900. Women didn't even have the right to vote in 1900, and imagine saying that in 1900. And so there on the screen, I've just put a couple of ads that appeared in the Pensacola News Journal, and they had the grocery store for at least 13 years. And so this 5-year success one, I think that was that was around 1900, I believe, that they did that one. So I think it was like 1894, 1895 that they started it. And then this was a listing of him, just kind of bragging 3 winners about some real estate deals that he was offering people. And I think that's 1911. I forgot to put that up there, but I think that one is 1911. So here is, even though it has his name there, it was both him and his wife were always listed on these documents that they did. And so again, she was a teacher in the public schools, and he ran the grocery store. But they were in those businesses together as full partners. This is one that was a 3-way partnership between 3 gentlemen. Newton Coles, I just forgot Watts' first name. I think it may have been John. I have it up there, but I forgot his first name. No, it was W. Watts. I forgot his first name. And John Sunday Jr. So people around here will know the name John Sunday, the father. And so this is John Sunday Jr., sometimes called John Sunday the third, because his grandfather was also John Sunday. So this was a partnership that was very specific. So Newton Coles they were both carpenters. They were Newton Coles was a carpenter out on the military base, out at what they call the Navy Yard then. And John Sunday was a carpenter, a builder, because of his father, the experience that he gained from his father, who was a developer, carpenter and a developer, and heavily invested in real estate. But they came together, and this is the only instance that I can find. They came together to build the new Mount Zion Baptist Church, which is a historical church, and which was designed by historical church in Pensacola, in downtown Pensacola, in the historic Belmont Village neighborhood. And this is the only instance that I can find. So sometimes you couple together, you form a partnership for a specific thing, and this is one good, something again that still lasts, that is still there today. But they built that new church. They built the parsonage, which no longer exists, but they built the parsonage and the church. And so this is a really good thing. Sometimes you come together for a specific task. But that's Newton Coles there on the left screen, and then John Sunday standing there in the suit there.
So were you getting ready to say that the church was designed by the first or second Black architect?
Oh, thank you. Yes. Wallace Rayfield, W.A. Rayfield, Wallace Rayfield. He was the second known licensed African-American architect in the United States. And he designed a lot of the buildings at Tuskegee. Booker T. Washington brought him to Tuskegee when Tuskegee was growing. And you could hire him, and you would tell him your plans, and he would develop the plans and then ship the plans to you so that you could build your plans. He advertised that he designed churches. And in this area, Northwest Florida, we have 2 that are still existing, one in Escambia County, where Pensacola is, and one in Milton in Santa Rosa County, the next county over, across the water. Over. So just, again, for a very specific purpose, they formed this partnership. Sunday also had another construction company with a gentleman named Pons, and I forget his first name, but it was Sunday and Pons. So again, very specific. Sometimes you are inspired to do a project or something, and you form something for a very specific project or task. This is I always say this is one of my favorite ones. so people know Joe Morris and Sons, owned and run today by David Hawkins and uh, and so people know that name. They know the Morris name because of Joe Morris and his son, um, Joe Morris Jr. Ran that funeral home, and that should have just been one son, not sons. But before that, before it became known as Joe Morris, it was actually Morris Brothers Funeral Home, and before that, it was Richard Morris had the funeral home, and so we know. So he says, David always says, I'm gonna get him in trouble for this, but I'm gonna say it anyway because it's the truth. They say that they were started in 1913. Well, I found this evidence that they were actually started around 1910, and here what you see on this this little inset, Richard Morris Jr., undertaker and embalmer. It was Richard Morris and his brother David Morris, which are shown in this picture here with their parents. He took over when Wade Harvey passed the year before. So Richard Morris took over the business for him in sometime between 1910 and 1911. So we believe it was 1910. And so, so the interesting thing about this, so this was this was a group effort. They had that business, they had a store, they had I'll say a juke joint, for lack of a better word, out on the military base, and they also had a clothing store, right where Reverend Powell's building is, where the Truth for Youth building is, was an actual, and the before it was a bakery. They had a clothing store there, and so so the way there is one, the oldest descendant, now he's in his 80s now, Mr. Prince Morris. There are a few Prince Morrises in the family, but Mr. Prince Morris told me that it was the women who supported them. So this whole partnership, this coupling, if you will, the sisters and the wives of these men were mostly teachers, and they provided the financial what's the word? The finances. They provided finances for these businesses, not only to get them going, but often to keep them going. And so if you think of the ebb and flows of business, you may need a partner, a couple of partners, or one another person to provide the finance for you. You have an idea, you have this idea for a product or service, but you need this financial backing. And in this case, it was their sisters and their wives who provided that money, that often seed money, often here's a little bit extra to keep it going. So I thought that was really cool. And you see 4 of those sisters, and I don't doubt that Richard Morris, the father, who's sitting there on that first row, the older gentleman on that first row, and his wife. I don't imagine that she did the same. I mean, I can't imagine that she did the same thing as he was doing. He was the first known lighthouse keeper, one of the first known African American lighthouse keepers out at the Navy Yard, and so at the lighthouse there. And so they kept them going. Those women kept those businesses going. So sometimes you just need those finances. You have an idea, and you need the finances to do. And sometimes that comes from your own family.
All right.
All right, I think this is the last one here. This one is it's a fun and funny one. So William Benbow came from Montgomery, Alabama, and he followed his brother to Pensacola for a job. They were both chair caners. It's a beautiful art form, and one that still is in demand today. But they were chair caners, so much so that they were recruited to come here, and from Montgomery. He also was an entertainer. He's a musician, and I think a musician and a singer. But he was also a promoter, and so he had William Benbow's Troubadours. This is his wife, Margie Cohen. She's African American. She looks, very, very light skinned. her name is Margie Cohen. And what he would do is he would marry the stars of his show, the starlets. So this is his either second or third wife. He had a first wife. He had another wife, Edna. She was the star of the show. And so this is Margie is the longest star of the show. And you can see Margie is several years younger than William was, but in this case, she was this headliner for him, and so in this way, they both provided. He was the promoter of it, but people didn't know that they were married because she kept her, as you see in this ad. This is an ad out of on the right, out of Omaha, Nebraska. The one with the Belmont Theater was out of that was when they came in out of Pensacola. That one is 1927. I think the one in Omaha was 1925. They took their act all over America. They took their act to South America, Central America, and to into the Caribbean, and to countries around the Caribbean as well. And so he would have 25, you would see him have 23 people, 15 people. It was amazing. And so he took these companies performing all around. But again, his partner, his wife was coupled up with him, but she did not take his last name. So you didn't know that they were married. That was part of the act. And so each one of his previous wives, that was part of their act, that he married the starlet. We see this in, that still goes on in Hollywood today, where the promoter marries a starlet. There's plenty of cases. But here you have, this going on, back in the 1900s, early 1900s. And when he died in 1950, I think it was a 2 or 3 day funeral. They said it was thousands of people. He did it with the Mills brothers, with so many other people. Ethel Waters. He shared stages with this. They owned a club in Washington, D.C., and he finally, the last 10 or 15 years of his life, he was in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is where after was promoting a club there. And so after he passed, she became a corrections officer or something in that field, social work or corrections or something in that field around corrections. A probation officer or something like that. But yeah, she was a starlet, and so it's another way to couple. Sometimes that asset is right in your family, and so but like in that case, he didn't let them know that that was his wife.
Yes, pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, we appreciate that history lesson there, and that's what you can always get inspired from history, and hearing the stories. And I tell people, I would sit here in the office, and you would be when you were doing a documentary for all the research for the making of a neighborhood, and I would hear all those stories people were telling, and it was definitely very inspiring. To say, how they were accomplishing all these things. What's our problem today? Why are we not accomplishing all these great things? So it is really fantastic. So
well, I think we are. I think people are accomplishing great things. Sometimes it takes you looking back to really see and appreciate the work that is being done. Sometimes, we don't appreciate the work that someone's done until they're gone from that space of time, and then you can really examine it. But when you're in it, when you're actually doing that work, sometimes you don't get the chance to examine it. I suspect in the case like JT Spann that, he's providing a death benefit and then he dies, so some of those policies that he wrote, he wouldn't even be able to see the benefit that he provided. So sometimes, yeah, you have to look back to go forward. It's the Sankofa principle. You got to look back and remember your history as you move forward. And now more than ever, I think we have to see these stories and be inspired by them.
Yes. So any parting words about helping folks tell their story, or founders tell their story, or just anything you want to share before we wind down here?
Yeah, I think write it down. Whether that's in your phone or on a tablet. I'm for however you get it out of your head. I think that's so important. Don't be afraid to share your story. Don't be afraid that someone's going to steal your story. You're the one with the roots, and so somebody snipping off a piece of your deal does not take away from your roots. Matter of fact, and when you prune something, in back to our gardening example, when you prune it things tend to flush out a little bit more and become
Yeah.
fuller. Sometimes you gotta uh, take off some of that literal, figurative, rather, dead weight of, old branches or spent branches or something. And so I think you have to be all right with sharing your story and find people that you can love and trust that are going to tell you the truth. Lord have
Yeah.
mercy. Don't just, oh, that's a good story. Oh, you did good. You would tell you some really good feedback, and test it. Test your idea by telling other people your story, and it will gel. The more you talk about it and tell it, the more it will gel. And then listen to other people's stories too. So as I say this, I'm kind of hogging the time. Listen to other people's story too,
Yeah,
because theirs are just as important, and they will add to. And you never know what little tidbit you're going to glean,
that's exactly right.
yeah, from them, their story, that will help you. Let them deposit something in you. I say this: we were at a dinner, and I sat next to a young lady, and I mean, she just had, what we call in the country diarrhea of the mouth, and never, never, just talking about her idea. It's like she never took a breath to listen to any feedback. So it was at the end of the night when I had to tell her, I had to kind of share, give her my little input on what she was saying, because she just never took a breath, um, to really see if her story was resonating with me,
Yeah,
as her audience. And so sometimes, um, as Oliver Darden, who owns Burger King's, retired now, he said, you tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you don't have to always be selling. You tell them what you tell them, then stop
hmm
and let
yeah.
that thing breathe. Yeah.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Well, we'll appreciate that. And so I'm going to show a video here to close us out. But the video was inspired by you. Uh,
Uh-oh, uh-oh, uh-oh,
well,
uh-oh,
it was,
uh-oh.
so
Let me
it's
put my glasses on so I can see.
Yeah, so you remember I was showing this chart when Dr. Roz asked that question, like what's the takeaway and the insight from, this idea about what, you like to telling stories and stuff. But it literally was saying that narrative drives your growth, and it's the true unfair advantage, because people can copy stuff, but they
Mhm.
can't they can't really copy your life story. you know
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's kind of what the deal was there. But you're welcome to hang around, but I'm going to play this video, and that'll close it out. But I wanted to let everybody know, um, we're going to be doing our closing out our 90-day demand validation program next Thursday, and so in this we don't broadcast those things, because it's kind of like this: the founders are giving their progress report from what they've been doing over the last 90 days. But I will. I'm not sure if I'll be able to run a recorded stream for you or whatever, but I'll make sure I post enough stuff out there that you all can use and learn. But if you're interested in uh, you know in actually viewing it, I guess if you let me know, I'll definitely consider letting you have the link to watch it. Yes. So thank you, my love.
Thank you, baby.
All right, sweetie pie.
You know,
All
in the
right.
startup world, we are obsessed with the shiny stuff, the tech, the funding rounds, the latest growth hacks. But what if the most powerful weapon a founder has is something, Well, something a lot more human. Today, we're diving into how a great story can become a startup's biggest and most unfair advantage. Seriously, think about that for a second. We put all this energy into celebrating unique technology and chasing that perfect product-market fit. But what if the real key, the thing that unlocks everything from growth to funding to attracting the absolute best talent, isn't buried in your code at all? What if it's in the story you tell? So, here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll look at a huge blind spot many founders have. Then, we'll talk about moving beyond the same old pitch deck. After that, we'll see how your story becomes your ultimate competitive advantage. And finally, we'll get our hands dirty and talk about how you can actually start building yours. All right, let's jump right in with the biggest hurdle that so many founders face, and a lot of the time, they don't even see it. It's this fundamental blind spot in how they talk about what they're building. Now, if you're a founder, this probably hits close to home, right? You've spent months, maybe even years, completely obsessed with your product's features, its architecture, its technical brilliance. So of course that's what you want to talk about. But the problem is, when you do that, you're skipping the most crucial part, the human connection. And this, right here, this gets to the absolute heart of the communication gap. On one side, you've got all the technical jargon, all the what and the how. It's logical, it's precise, but honestly, it's pretty cold. On the other side, you've got emotional clarity. That's the why. That is where you actually connect with people, by explaining why this problem even matters in the first place. Okay, so if just talking about the tech is the problem, what's the solution? Well, it's not a small tweak. It requires a really fundamental mindset shift, one that takes us way beyond the bullet points you'd find in a standard pitch deck. And let's be super clear here. This is not about just tacking a cute anecdote onto the beginning of your pitch. No, this is about completely reframing your entire company. You stop being just the person building a product, and you become the main character in a story about solving a real problem for real human beings. Just look at the difference here. It's huge. I'm building an app. That's a statement about an object. It's a conversational dead end. But I'm solving a human problem? Well, that makes me lean in. It invites a question. Oh, really? What problem? Why do you care? All of a sudden, you're opening the door to a real story, and the conversation becomes instantly more interesting. This leads us to this really powerful idea called the mirror principle. See, a great founder story isn't just about shouting a message out into the world. It's also a tool for you to get clear on your own vision. By figuring out how to talk about who you are and why this work matters so much to you, you basically create a mirror that reflects that same value and vision back to everyone else, whether they're customers, investors, or your first employees. Okay, so we've shifted our mindset. We get it. Story is important. Now let's talk about the strategic payoff, because this is where storytelling goes from being a nice-to-have soft skill to an absolute must-have for survival and growth. I love this quote from storyteller Reshard. It just captures the whole idea perfectly. In those early days, right, before you have any brand recognition or any real market traction, you are the brand. Your clarity, your conviction, your voice, that is what people are actually buying into. Let's be really, really clear about this. A well-crafted narrative is a core business driver. This isn't just for the About Us page on your website. It is a genuine strategy for gaining real, tangible traction in the market. How? Well, think about it. A clear story builds trust way faster than any feature list ever could. It makes customer discovery easier because people open up to a person with a purpose. It attracts those crucial early adopters who want to be part of your journey, not just users of a product. It literally accelerates everything from getting partnerships to securing funding to sparking that priceless organic word of mouth. And honestly, this is the ultimate strategic advantage. Anyone can copy your features. Competitors can replicate your business model. But your authentic founder story, your unique why, that is yours and yours alone. In a sea of lookalike products, your narrative becomes the strongest, most defensible moat you can possibly build around your business. So this all sounds pretty powerful, but the big question is, how do you actually do it? Let's get practical. In this final section, we're going to walk through a simple playbook to help you start crafting your own founder story right now. Okay, first things first, let's just bust a huge myth. You do not have to be a natural-born public speaker or some kind of charismatic genius to have a great story. This is a process. It is a learnable skill, and it all starts by just asking yourself the right questions. So here's a super simple exercise to get you started. Question 1, the why. Of all the millions of problems in the world, why did you pick this one? Question 2, the moment. Can you pinpoint a specific moment when this problem went from being an idea to something deeply personal for you? And third, the truth. What is the unique insight you have that you feel like the rest of the market is just missing? Now, once you have those core ingredients from the exercise, you can start to weave them together into a narrative. You start with your origin story, then you bring in that unique insight you have about the problem. You create some urgency by explaining why now. Then you share that core emotional truth behind your mission, show how it connects with your customers, and finally, you close with the promise you're making to them. So let's wrap up with the biggest takeaways here. 1, story comes before strategy. It's the foundation for everything else. 2, customers buy into emotion long before they buy into solutions. Always lead with the why. 3, your story is a core part of your growth engine, not just some marketing fluff. And finally, that story is what builds community and a unique culture, which might just be your most powerful long-term advantage. And all of this leads us to one big, powerful idea: narrative-led growth. It's a strategy that puts your authentic story right at the very center of your business, making it the primary engine for attracting customers, talent, and funding. So the only question left is, what story will you tell?
Cool. We'll see you all in a couple of weeks. Take care. Bye-bye.